Hey everybody, how's it going? And we are back for another episode of Good Bits. My name is Taj. Those of you that are just tuning in, welcome to Wolf Bitcoin. And as usual, Saturday nights, we do a wonderful stream on all the amazing things that are happening within Bitcoin, not looking at charts, all the news, all the craziness, but looking at some positive stories. And we're diving right into the positivity of all the amazing things that can happen and come out of Bitcoin. And as I said, every single Wednesday, every single Saturday, we tune in to these amazing stories. We share them with you. So I highly would appreciate it if you share this with your friends, anyone that you know that might be interested in some positive Bitcoin stories, some feel good stories, some interesting stories. That's the type of stuff that we're going to highlight and dive into. First and foremost, anything that is just positive, but then also we like to look at circular economies, how Bitcoin is being used to strengthen and just uplift local communities, other Bitcoiners, reaching out to other Bitcoiners, merchants that are spending Bitcoin, using it in their small businesses. And it just makes everything so much better, especially those of you that are around the world outside of the US, Europe, and like the really, really strong economies that might not have this concept of Bitcoin circular economies, that you'll really appreciate the value of what we're going to highlight here, because I don't think enough love goes to these particular projects and communities and initiatives that are happening all around the world. But we will also cover the aspects that also go into the tech of everything, the developers around the world that are helping to bring on worldwide adoption. And we just like to cover all of those different things, how it all glues together. And of course, they relate to Bitcoin. We're Bitcoiners. We're all happy together, orange pilling one another. And of course, the story that is highlighting on the screen right here, which happens to be the lead story, is a graduation that took place in Burundi. Now, those of you that are not familiar, it is in, I guess we'd say, South Central, not LA, South Central Africa. It is a country that has been, I guess you would say, had a very interesting history within the last, during my lifetime, anyways. A lot of, let's say, conflicts and various things, but this is a great, amazing thing that is happening there. Of course, like I said, in a lot of these economies, a lot of these countries where things aren't necessarily as strong as the U.S. or in Europe and so on. These circular economies are being adopted. And what's really interesting here, they just graduated the class of 2026. Bitcoiners were onboarded, as you can see here. Children, there's men, there's women, there's all sorts of people that were educated on the value within Bitcoin. And now they can go on to look at that little girl right there, just so excited to get her certificate. And it's just really interesting because, you know, it's one thing to say that the world and people are lacking education from, I guess you would say, a book knowledge standpoint, but financial literacy is a completely different ballgame, because even in the most literate countries where they're able to read, write, and do all sorts of things, education is just everywhere. Everyone can go to secondary and tertiary levels of education. We might take certain things for granted, but even in those countries, financial literacy is very lacking. You talk to the average American. I remember when I was in junior high school, we'd have to do this thing where we'd balance checkbooks and we would have to learn how to budget and all those different things. But that was all phased out. That no longer takes place in my junior high school. So all around the country, all around the world, people are just not financially literate. They don't even know how to balance their budget, much more know how money works. So it's just really interesting that we have local communities such as this right here, BTC Shuli, which is in Burundi. And this video is just playing again, showing all of the amazing things. But I'll just go to the page real quick. So you can see that they have multiple partnerships and so forth. And this is their Blink wallet address. Many times I speak about Blink. Blink was originally the Bitcoin Beach wallet from El Salvador, and it has morphed. Now it is used all around the world. You can use the Blink wallet. They also have an education thing right in the app where you can basically be paid sats for learning about Bitcoin, and it's all running on donation. And a lot of this stuff is open source. Therefore, all of this stuff is open source. You can clone it, you can make your own version of it, put it in your own local colors and so on. And that's just one of the cool things. But anyways, going back to this right here locally, Bitcoin Shuli, or BTC Shuli, if you will. This is Burundi. You can check out this page. And as you can see, just lots of education. This shop right here, just regular people that are, you know, look at all smiles, accepting Bitcoin, and, you know, 300 villages and so on. So this little village that you might not necessarily think much of. And of course, you know, people that are Bitcoiners are literally everywhere. We have an adventure spirit. We'll go anywhere that there's other Bitcoiners. We'll support those businesses and so on. And I think it's just really interesting that they're working with the Trezor Academy. They're working with My First Bitcoin or My Primero Bitcoin, depending where you are in the world, how you'd pronounce that, Spanish, English. But lots of partnerships, educational initiatives going on. And I just think it's just absolutely a beautiful thing because I remember when I was younger and I was learning about Rwanda and Burundi, and it was all about negative stories and all these things. But look at this. These are wonderful, happy people, all smiles and so on. And is life, bed of roses everywhere? No, like, no, everyone has problems. Every location has problems. And I think a lot of the times we have like this perception of like suffering Africans, if you will, right? And that is not necessarily the case. I myself, I went over to Africa and I had a ball. I know it's a massive continent. When you say you went to Africa, like, what does that mean, really? Right. Well, I went to South Africa and I went to the kingdom of Eswatini. And when you look on some of these charts and so on, you'd be like, oh man, this is a poor country. But I can tell you, I had a ball when I was over there. People were living life. It's hard to even fathom or comprehend uh, income locally, GDP, and all that stuff, and understanding what an average person is making, and understand that they can actually survive and live. It's because it's completely different system. Like, so for example, rather than going to KFC, you might have chickens in the yard and all these different things. And even where I'm living in the Caribbean here in Jamaica on an island, you hear some of the salaries and so on. It's like it doesn't really compute. But anyways, going back to the story right here, as you can see, there's happy people in Burundi, excuse me, happy people in Burundi. They're learning about Bitcoin, education, there's smiles, there's positive things going on. And I just love how this page just really highlights all this stuff. Some, obviously they're sharing Bitcoin news and education with people and so on. But last week you saw I did the live demo of the My Chankura app right there. They're highlighting that too as well. So lots of good things are happening in Burundi on the Bitcoin front. And just going back to this photo right here with all those amazing people, because you might be thinking, well, this might not even be the real thing. These are stock photos or whatever it might be. Let me go back to the lead story. Let's take a look at this photo again. That's where I'm going to kind of freeze frame it. So that way, of course, I am not seeing where it is. But the original story that I opened up with, sharing, of course, let me see if I press back. Will it go to it? There we go. That right there, that is a local village. These people are as real as it gets, right? This is not a staged opportunity. As you can see, look at the building behind there. I mean, this is a real village. These are real people that were impacted by Bitcoiners, Bitcoin education. Now they're financially literate. Look how little that little girl is. Such a beautiful scene. I'm really happy to see what's going on there. But really just wanted to highlight the amazing things that are happening. And the next story, of course, this is all related to Bitcoin Shuli and all the amazing things that are happening there. But we're going to go to some circular economies. And oftentimes I speak about what's happening there in the Dominican Republic. Well, Bitcoin Dominicana. This is an amazing, I guess you'd say, update, if you will, from them. 20% discount are being offered now at this particular restaurant in the colonial zone, a zona colonia, right? So Rojios, excuse me, fast food in zona colonia, which would be the colonial zone. And I am so sorry for my Spanish speaking friends. My apologies. I got to get back on my Duolingo. I got to hang out with my Dominicans, my Cubans, and so on, and really brush up on my pronunciations. And I know I say that every week, but that one was rough. But as you can see right there, they are local businesses. As you can see, nothing fancy here. This is just a regular, down to earth, real people's businesses. That counter right there, about to do the little tap to pay or send it based on the bill right there. As you can see, these are real people buying their food, checking out. And what's beautiful about it is that 20% discount. And again, sometimes I mention this, and a lot of people, especially in the States, would understand, don't really comprehend and understand, say, why on earth would any business owner offer a discount for Bitcoiners? Well, number one, if you're trying to buy Bitcoin in a lot of these countries, like, going through an exchange or using some sort of money transfer, there's going to be a whole bunch of fees anyways. So it's like the actual, I guess you would say, transaction from that standpoint. If you want to get Bitcoin, just offer services, goods and services, and allow people to pay in Bitcoin. That's number one. Number two is the fact that when you are using credit card services, debit card services in a lot of these countries, it is actually very expensive. So like the bank fees, setting up merchant services, all that stuff, it is a complete headache, chargebacks, you name it. It is a nightmare in some countries. So depending where it actually is way cheaper to encourage people to use Bitcoin, use Lightning, getting them to the habit of doing that. But then also, the most important thing, and the reason why I'm highlighting this is not because saving businesses money, but it encourages the circular economy. And the Bitcoin circular economy, the reason why I always love to highlight these on the show is because a Bitcoin circular economy keeps that money flowing within that community. A lot of times, and even if you're in the United States of America, where the vast majority of the audience that we normally that normally tunes into this show is located, you can understand when you hear things saying like nothing's ever made in America anymore. All of the money is going out to import goods from China, from wherever else, because low cost wages and all that stuff. And we lost the jobs, we lost the manufacturers, it all shipped out. And guess what? Those dollars now, those consumer dollars, are being sent overseas and it messes up the local economy. So take this down to a granular level now. Think of like your local community, right? Days of general stores and not the Walmarts in town sending the profits back to Arkansas, not knocking Walmart. Those of you that are shareholders, love you all. But what I'm saying is those big box retailers that really turned up local communities and small town general stores, department stores all across America, then it became a bigger thing when they started to even go and export everything as far as the manufacturing and all that stuff. So the dollars really are not circulating in communities or even circulating within the country. So a Bitcoin circular economy kind of solves all of that in the sense that local businesses, local merchants, customers, and so on, you can pay your workers in it. You can do all of those various things. And the funds actually just go around multiple times before leaving out. Yes. Are they going to travel? Are they going to go elsewhere in the world and spend their money? Of course they are, right? Most people are not trying to lock down only in their community. They're trying to venture out, right? They're trying to see things, even if they never do, because most people actually don't travel too far. Most people never leave their country, but they have dreams of going elsewhere. So, of course, those funds are going to go with them wherever they spend. Of course, if you go to Paris, you go to Africa, you go to Central America, you go to wherever you want to go on a Bitcoin tour, you're going to spend sats all over the place. So it's not that you're not going to ever spend money outside of your community. But while you're living in the community, the money is going to circulate. And as a result, everyone's going to benefit from that, right? All the profits aren't being shipped out elsewhere. And in return, those business owners and everybody is going to spend their money and support one another and just makes the community a better, safer place. And that's why we love Bitcoin, right? One of many reasons. But speaking of that, we're going to go to Berlin, not Berlin in Germany, but Berlin in El Salvador, which might be a little confusing. It tricked me the first time I saw it because even the flag of their, or I guess you say the logo of their Bitcoin Berlin page here, the community page, happens to be the German flag. But here we are. This is another business, local business. Of course, this is a coffee shop, and they're also accepting Bitcoin. So these are just regular, everyday people in El Salvador accepting Bitcoin. And as you can see, like this is not staged. This is the real place. You can go there. You can check this out, and you can check out the faces. You can check out the people. You can meet them. They have Bitcoin in the menus. They have Bitcoin everywhere. And right here, this is the POS system. People can play with their phone. So really cool stuff that's happening. The POS system is on board. It is right there. And you can pay in sats. You can get coffee. So anytime you hear someone say, nobody's buying a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, you say, my friend, let me show you the Good Bits live stream, and I will show you that people are buying coffee with Bitcoin. Just because you're not doing it doesn't mean that nobody's doing it. Just because you don't know anybody that's doing it doesn't mean nobody's doing it. There's people all around the world that are buying Pepsis, they're buying water, they're buying their lunch, they're paying their staff, they're doing all sorts of cool things. They're living their life and they are operating on Bitcoin. And you might think, well, nobody can do this full time. That's where you're wrong again. Next story that we're going to hop to is actually this guy. This kind of overlaps with not just the circular economy stuff, not just the tech stuff, but someone who's living on the Bitcoin standard. Now, he is a person that went to, this is the next story that I'm going to hop to, but this is the Uganda a boot camp. They had a Bitcoin Lightning developer boot camp. Well, anywho, this fellow was there, this developer, and he traveled all the way back home on sats, not spending any fiat. So he is a Bitcoin standard traveler, if you will. And as you can see right here, all of these places that he is going, he is spending his sats. So why is that not loading? Check this out. And all the time I talk about these Bitcoinetas, if you will, all around the world, these Bitcoin vehicles that are all over the place, out and about. They're usually flashy. They're brightly colored. Not all of them are nice and new and shiny like this, like the ones a lot of them that I have highlighted in the past. Like these are old beater vehicles, if you will, 1994 Range Rovers or Land Rovers. There's some old, I don't even know what they are. Some of them, I don't know. It's like an act of God to keep these things on the road. Some of them, how they look, but they're so eye catching. They're really cool. And it's like a community thing, right? The community centers, these people, they put together their vehicles and so on. But you just look up the Bitcoin family and you can see how they're traveling and doing all sorts of amazing things. But anywho, all this traveling from this event was all done on Bitcoin. But what I want to say before we can even get to that stage, we have to give thanks and shout out to all the amazing people that are building stuff. So this right here, this Uganda boot camp in which he was coming from, I just want to highlight the fact that, yes, he was traveling through Mozambique or to Mozambique and doing all sorts of cool things. But this right here is a boot camp that took place in Uganda. Yes, Uganda. Uganda, another country that might be having some interesting news timelines depending where you are. But yeah, they're doing all sorts of different things. They're learning about Bitcoin, teaching the fundamentals. They're building real world lightning powered applications. And all of those different things are taking place all around the world. The SDKs with standard developer kits, like all of these things. So not only are they getting a Bitcoin education, but they're also getting a developer education. Now, oftentimes I talk about the local impact that Bitcoin is having on a community. And what better way to edify and build up your own community than to build something that is going to directly impact what is going on there. And I think this is just really cool that they had this developer, I guess you would say, boot camp. So teaching the next generation of builders and coders and so on. You just apply there, and I believe it was I think it was a 10-day boot camp, if I'm not mistaken. And this is up anyways. But if you just look up Uganda Developer Bootcamp, you can Google that, and you'll definitely find it. And you can see right here all the information. The next one will be the 23rd of March through the 27th. So this is a multi-day, 4-day one. And look at that. If it's free, it's for me. Thing is just getting to Uganda. So if you are in Uganda, you're planning to go to Uganda, or you just want to check out what's happening, or you just want to tune in to see, like, man, what happened with the latest one, just type in Uganda Bitcoin Lightning Bootcamp in the next couple of weeks. And I'm pretty sure you'll see it on your timeline. Builders putting out all the amazing things that they have made coming out of Uganda. So really interesting things are happening there on a local level. But when we speak about local levels, now, this is where things start to get really interesting, if you will. So Switzerland is not known as Bitcoin capital. However, this particular town wants to be known as Bitcoin capital, if you will. So they have a partnership, Lugano, which is in Switzerland. Lugano's Plan B. They have a partnership with Tether, and the city is rolling out Bitcoin education. They're trying to be the Bitcoin hub of Europe, really. That's what they're trying to be. And it's very interesting because out of all the countries in the world, the most stable, the most strong currency, if you will, in many cases, believe it or not, there's some Bitcoiners that, like, when they stable up, or they talk about like they're going over to, ride this swing down or whatever, they stable up. They're not doing it in USDT. They're not doing it in dollars. They're not doing it in whatever stable coin. They're doing it in Swiss francs. So it's really interesting that the Swiss, even, because a lot of times because one of my friends went to Switzerland and he said, man, it's like, it's a completely different world when you talk about currencies and economies and everything. Here, everything's so expensive and they don't even understand what we're really doing with this whole Bitcoin thing. It's just a novelty. However, this particular city, Lugano, sees the vision, and they're so far ahead that they're actually doing all sorts of initiatives where taxes and all sorts of things, like they have a huge plan, the Plan B, of course, of how to get their city on the Bitcoin standard. Now, what makes this really interesting is, number one, they have that partnership there with Tether. Okay, some Bitcoiners might be offended by that right there, but it is what it is. Research that Tether launched, from day one, was like tied to Bitcoin and everything when they started Tether. So like they're basically coming home to their roots now, as they say. But what's interesting with this particular city, which kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, is they also have a city stablecoin, which is like, wait, what? Like, how are these Bitcoiners, right? I know, right? Hear me out. Just listen to me here. So we're tying all this stuff together now. We have Bitcoin people. We have the positive stories, the education. Now we have all the craziness of the stable Swiss franc, if you will. And these Bitcoiners have a city coin on top of it. So there's like 3 layers that's happening in this city. And you might thinking this is way too complicated. Why you bring this stuff up? But I just want to tie this into the circular economy things. That city token that they have is tied to their Swiss franc. However, it can only be spent in their city. Now, again, this is taking the whole circular economy thing to like a different level. And yes, you can do this with Bitcoin. So depending where you are, you're not Switzerland. I mean, again, this is one of those exceptions to the rules. Not everybody has a Swiss franc as their currency, but we all know fiat is fiat. It is what it is. They just happen to be the prettiest girl in the ugly contest. But when it comes to circular economies, normally we're talking about using Lightning, and even in those Lightning wallets, they have something called stable sats, which is really sats. And I don't want to get all technical with it, but it's all backed by Bitcoin, is running on Bitcoin. And I wouldn't even say it's backed by Bitcoin. It is Bitcoin on the Lightning wallet. And the way in which they're doing that, they're doing some shorting in the background to be able to make it stable. So that way the merchants and the people that are using this don't have to worry about the fluctuating. I'm trying to oversimplify this thing, but anyways, unique situations of what's happening in a Swiss community. They know the unique problems that they have, the reverence that they might have for the Swiss franc, but also at the same time, they want to build local circular economies. So they have their own Swiss franc that only works in their town. And I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, let me scroll here. I think it was 300 and something merchants within that town, and you can only spend it within that town. So this is like not even something that you can export and go spend somewhere else in Switzerland. Like, no, these are local merchants. This wallet, this everything that they have set up is really locking in this concept of a circular economy. But of course, they want to be the Bitcoin hub for Europe. So just check this out right here. This is Lugano's Plan B. You can go look that up, hear all the amazing things that they are doing in particular. I forget the exact number of merchants that are on this, but I just find it really interesting that even the Swiss are thinking about circular economies. So if the Swiss and their strong franc, their strong economy per se, like, but you're not really struggling if you're living in Switzerland. I put it that way. Like even the poor are living pretty good. You know what I mean? The quote unquote poor. So they're thinking about circular economy. So even so, more people that are living outside of Switzerland, probably every single person that's watching this stream, there might be some Swiss. If there are some Swiss, shout out to the Swiss. Happy to have you on board. Really cool things that are happening there. And of course, you guys are Bitcoiners. We're all Bitcoiners. We're all orange pilled. We love one another. It's all good. So yeah, wherever we're living, we should be looking at this and taking this thing really seriously and saying, man, I really need to get into these circular economies. Now, the Numo wallet, very interesting one here. This is the Numo Pay app, I should say. And as you can see right here, how simple it is. They're sending 21 sats. And it is obviously to send 21 sats, that means the cost of payment, the transaction has to be this quick and it has to be that cheap. So as you can see right here, it does make sense to go out and buy your cup of coffee, pay your barber. You can do whatever it is using sats and Lightning because it is fast and it is cheap. You don't have to worry about, man, does this actually make sense? Well, again, especially those of you that are of the mindset of no, you should never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, spend or use or get rid of, shrink the amount of Bitcoin that you have. And it's absolutely ridiculous. You should sell your kidney, you sell your whatever, your house, your car, whatever, before you sell your Bitcoin. Like, I get that. But here's the thing. If you're a person that's paid in Bitcoin, right? Your business accepts Bitcoin. You're paid in Bitcoin. All of your income is in Bitcoin. How are you going to live, my friend? Yes, you could say, oh, I'm just going to borrow that and just, borrow, buy, die. Okay, cool. But your business, your revenue is coming in. It's also going out in Bitcoin. You're replenishing that amount. It's no different than when you were on the quote unquote fiat standard, right? Most of us that are of that personality or of that mindset never, ever, 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 ever spend any Bitcoin. Guess what? Most likely you have a day job that's paying you in fiat. So it's easy for you to say, don't sell your Bitcoin, get rid of your fiat, buy Bitcoin, store your Bitcoin. But what about the guy and gal that has no fiat coming in? It's all Bitcoin, right? That's the person that is most prone, most likely to be living on the Bitcoin standard, traveling all across Africa, only spending Bitcoin. And show the guy from Mozambique or traveled from Uganda to Mozambique entirely on Bitcoin. Talk about Bitcoin Akasi and those guys who their entire business is running on sats. Well, obviously, when they go to buy gas, they're going to fill up. They're going to do whatever it is, get a flat tire with that Bitcoin, La Bitcoineta vehicle, whatever you're driving through Africa, hit some potholes. How are you going to fix that vehicle? You're going to use your Bitcoin, my friend. You're going to use your Bitcoin. So wallets and apps such as this, it's no different than using the Cash App. It just happens to be Bitcoin. And what's really cool about this particular Numo app is they also have merchant services. This is a unique thing that I have checked out quite a few of these various wallets and see what's going on and so on. But this one, I don't know if they're the first to do this, but this first one that I've personally seen that does this particular thing, they actually have these employee modes. So those of us that have physical businesses that have ever been in charge of a POS system and so on, there's certain things that you don't let your operator do. So when I was managing our store, family business, of course, we were in the grocery business. All the distribution stuff, of course, would be done with invoices and so on. We didn't have to worry about that. But the retail customers that came in that wanted to pay with their debit cards, their credit cards, and so on, they would have to go over to the supervisor, run their card, and so on. But what happened was when it came to refunds, it came to settling, when it came to certain information that we didn't necessarily want just any staff to have access to, we would require a password that only we would know. And one of our, very high up employees, if you will, but like the average cashier, the average supervisor, no, did not have access to this. So what's really cool with this is allows the merchant services, if you will, employee mode to be able to lock off certain sensitive information. So like referrals and all the referral withdrawals and any of the private information, the sensitive information, the employee can use this device and not have access to that. So whether it is one of those POS type of devices with the tap to pay and all that stuff, or in this particular case, it is a phone, that is very beneficial because I'm telling you that that's something that you just don't think about unless you are a merchant, you have other employees that's running the card machine and so on, that you don't give them the password to do refunds and all sorts of shenanigans because trust me, stuff goes down. If you knew half of the craziness that we've been exposed to, not just us, but our competitors, our friends, other people that are in business, like some stuff goes down. People think of some very crazy things that you think is like some Ocean's 11. Like, who would ever think of this scheme? Well, it happens. So this service right here, this particular feature, I think is absolutely amazing for the Numo app. And this is available in the app stores. You can check that out, see what that is. So if you're interested in accepting Bitcoin in your business, this might be one that you want to check. But I just want to say this stuff is like really, really cool. I absolutely love this stuff. I really appreciate every single one of you that tunes into these stories, checks out all the stuff that we are doing. And I really want to say that first and foremost, that I wanted to, I see a comment came in. It's got distracted there. I'm not going to pull that one up there, my friend. But completely irrelevant to the conversation at hand. But I really appreciate you tuning in, Uncle Scrooge McBitcoin. you know, tuning in, every single one of you. I really appreciate you every single day that that tune in, whether it is the spaces that we're on, just commenting on random stories that we're putting out, whatever it may be, any way in which that you interact with us, the Wolf Bitcoin crew, the Wolf crew, the Wolf Pack, if you will. Really want to appreciate you because without you, we're just talking to ourselves. We're just putting out content for our own enjoyment. But because of you, the lovely audience, all the amazing things, all the connections that we have been able to form with you, it makes it all worthwhile. So we appreciate you. This is a Saturday night. This is another episode of the Good Bit Show. My name is Taj, also known as Tropic. As you can see, my information, contact, whatever is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to me. But most importantly, check out all the rest of the amazing content that is coming out. Most of the shows, most of the content, videos, and so forth that you will see is our very good friend Cade. And of course, we have other guys such as Bits of Wealth. We have Nat. We have so many people in this ecosystem that just makes it so much fun to talk about Bitcoin, put out all this amazing stuff. Just check out the schedule, which will be coming out tomorrow, of all the amazing spaces, live streams, and everything coming your way. And as usual, always welcome to DM us. You have some stories that you want to hear about, anything that you want to check out, just hit us up. We will definitely cover it. We'll dive into it. We'll research it. We'll simplify it. Anything that you have questions on, man, I don't understand how that works, send it to us. We'll have some fun with it. Let us do some of the groundwork, if you will. And as usual, you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I will see you in the next one.